If you are trying to recover and repair your hair from damage, if you have a sensitive scalp, sensitive skin, if you are natural and just trying to figure out how to best pick products for yourself, then you don't want to miss today's episode of Your Hair Made Simple, where we are diving into the thought process behind making products, how to best understand and choose the products that are going to work for you. And of course, today's episode is sponsored by Your Hair Made Simple's products, our nourishing hair oil and butter formulated to be safe for those with sensitive skin and allergens. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and like this video and let's get into today's episode. And if you want to learn more about our products or our merch, you can find out more at yourhairmadesimple.com. All right, let's go, guys. What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Your Hair Made Simple, the podcast. I'm your host, Shannon, and today we are kicking off season 4 with a topic that I am so excited to chat about. We are diving into all things products, how you should be thinking about the products you choose, and the impacts of different product ingredients and why it matters, right? Like products that can potentially have connections to cancer, products that may just be allergens, and how we can better inform ourselves to select products that are going to work best for our journey. So make sure that you stick around to the end. We're chatting about this journey, but we're also going to give some tips for how you can be best thinking about your product selection for your own hair. So, with that being said, I have with me Ameka Coleman, who is the founder of Strands of Faith, which is a natural hair care line that's been informed by her own hair journey since 2006. It's small batch hand butters and oil products made with care. From founder to founder, as you may have seen, I recently launched my own nourishing hair butter and oil line. I'm super excited to have this conversation. As a founder, you think a little bit differently about the products, how you formulate them, and what's in them. So really wanted to bring this conversation to you all so you can be better informed, not just about looking at our products, but about your product journey as a whole and thinking about your hair and your hair care. So Ameka, I will turn it over to you to kick us off and say hello and start with, what is your hair story?
Hello. First of all, thank you so much for having me here today.
Absolutely.
Very excited about the conversation. And my hair story started at birth, actually.
Good. Okay, out the
My
womb.
hair story is out the womb. Yes, I grew up with my mom relaxed my hair around the age of 5. So I don't recall my hair in its natural textured state as an adult, throughout my youth, or anything like that. So fast forward for me, I was in college and I decided that I wanted to return to my roots, to, my natural texture, how it naturally sprouted and grew from my scalp. And that's when I made the decision to do the big chop and to just embrace the wholeness of me. And then also so it was a couple of reasons why. Number one, I've never seen my hair in its natural state. But then also for me, as someone who's went through various life traumas, it was a sense of control and freedom and trying something new. So it was like therapy. And so, yeah, I big chopped in 2006 and my hair was about an inch long. And from there, I grew it out and it's been, for the most part, natural ever since. I relaxed one last time in 2009 because I just had to get one last taste to see what's natural, really where it's at. And it was really where it's at because after I got that first relaxer, the next day, I made the decision to transition again, and I've been natural ever since.
So I'm curious before we even get into the product piece. One, I appreciate you sharing that because I think some people feel like, oh, I'm going natural and I have to stick this journey out and I have to make it work. And you're not the only person that shared that they have, tried it again just to be sure, right? And I think it
Yeah.
kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off to be like, I have to know with certainty or I have to feel these things with certainty. Like, yes, we want to promote and advocate for
Right.
healthy hair, right? And we have all this information and we know, but I think it's okay to also just say nobody's perfect in any type of journey, right? I think it's kind of a little bit
Mhm.
liberating in that sense. The
Mhm.
second
Yes.
time, did you also big chop the hair after you got the perm back to an inch again?
Yes.
Yes.
The first time I did it, I transitioned for about 11 months to let it get as long as it could because I wasn't used to short hair. And so at that time, it was about 2 inches. The second time, I was like, "You know what? Let me transition for as long as I can. I don't want to put a limit on it." And so that's what I did. However, I was met with life and nature happening because my strands are very fine.
Mhm.
And so when they're in this straight state, they, when they like mesh together, it's it for me. And so what happened was while I was transitioning, I went to sleep with conditioner in my hair, which for my hair at the time was a huge no mistake. I
Yeah,
woke up with globs of my strands like matted
matted
together that you could
together.
not pull apart and pick apart. And so that forced a premature, a big chop during that time. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that one happened.
No, but I think that's something that I had to learn. If this was a things that I used to do that I don't do anymore, I do not sleep with deep conditioner in my hair overnight anymore. Because I was like, oh, what could it hurt?
Yes.
Like it's doing its thing. But in terms of products, an important thing is using them how they're meant to be used, right? And deep conditioner is not meant to
Right.
sit in your hair overnight for that long. In addition to like the matting, it can also like cause bacteria things to grow on your head. Like if your scalp is wet for that long. So there's just so many other things
Uh-huh.
to consider. We're here with this
Yes,
hair,
get it how
then
it
other
live.
people are making decisions for our hair, and now we're left with the repercussions, right? Like we're left with the repercussions
Right.
to decide like how do we want to take ownership of our hair? How do we want to take advocacy of that? And so for you, it was,
Mhm.
making the transition in 2006 and I don't know what the culture was really like because I was, still letting somebody decide for
It
my
was
hair in
non-existent.
2006, but I don't feel like the
Yes.
conversation around natural hair was, like, as prevalent as it
No.
is now, and so, like, really kind of taking a step that a lot of people were not taking during that time, or if they were, it had a certain, like, persona associated with it, right?
Exactly. Mostly negative connotations, around that time.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
choosing to persist through that and forge a new identity for yourself from the life experiences that have led you to that point and then doing it again because we always got to like spin just to make sure we spun on the creamy crack a little bit and
Yeah.
then we made sure and then we went forward, right? And so I know with part of your journey you spent some time like in cancer settings, right? Like in oncology settings, and so you have that experience and then you kind of fast forward and you end up founding Strands of Faith, and there's lots of research that talks about the impact of perms in, leading to having a higher risk of cancer, urinary cancer, but also just certain ingredients that can be found in a lot of the common products that are even promoted for natural hair, having different like
Mhm.
risks associated with them. And so for you, having your experience and kind of like going natural at a time where it wasn't commonplace and fast forwarding, and you can talk a little bit about how you even got to that cancer space too, but like fast forwarding, what was kind of your aha moment amongst all these experiences? How did that lend to you starting to develop products based on what you were understanding and seeing?
Right. I think the aha moment for me was, well, the first aha moment was the lack of representation for textured hair. In the aesthetic look and then like the aesthetic and visuals, but most importantly, product, like what was available on the shelves. And so for me, knowing our hair types and the uniqueness of it and how the solutions that we need are different, I was like, I want to fill this gap, right? I mean, for me, having products that you put in your hair, it coats your strands. When you put it in, initially it feels moisturized and you think you're good to go. And then 6 hours later, 8 hours later, your hair is dry, is rough,
Crunchy.
it has, crunchy, the product has evaporated, and you realize that it had a lot of fillers in it that weren't nourishing, but that were kind of like placeholders, so to speak. And, I was like, we deserve better. We deserve quality products and that are going to be effective and that works. And so for me, that was the aha moment, the lack of representation, and then creating quality products that were effective and that worked for our texture. And that all came together. And to your point about the working in the oncology laboratory, I was able to work in that laboratory as a result of a program that I was a part of with PrEP. So it was like a year long internship. I had the chance to work in a lab and get experience working with different compounds to create like this nanoparticle delivery system, which that was my first time being introduced to research. I had no idea I would end up in the lab. And I always laugh now because I say, that was such a full circle moment. And God already knew because it was prepping my mind and molding my mind to get in that mindset of research because one day I would be formulating and manufacturing my own products. And so during that time, like in working on oncology studies, and seeing people get cancer and then digging deep, like what's the cause? Like there are so many different causes of cancer, obviously, but specifically when it comes to the ingredients and hair products and knowing that different preservatives and certain type of ingredients were used to extend like the shelf life or whatever of the products, but then they were harmful. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
how can I create these products and make them as clean as possible and remove those ingredients? And so just the culmination of that experience and my real life experience, that's kind of what brought together the aha moment, so to speak. So it wasn't a one thing, it was like a combination of
Yeah,
things
yeah.
over the years.
And I think that's, like, really important because in making my own products, right, like, the hair butter right now, it's a mix of, like, mango butter and aloe vera, so, like, I say, like, it has to be refrigerated. The aloe vera gel has some preservatives in it just to, like, keep it kinda mixing
Mhm.
together, but it's like, how do you identify, like, what are safe ones, or, like, how do you find these clean products? Like, how do you formulate them when you're thinking about it, right? Like, for me, I had to consider
Mhm.
I'm allergic to half the stuff on the shelves. Like, I'm allergic to tree nuts, I'm allergic to
Right.
coconut oil is in everything, everything. If you're allergic to I say this over and over, if you're allergic
Everything.
to something, you should not be putting it in your hair. If you're allergic to something, you should not be putting it in your hair or on your body.
Yep.
Um,
Absorbs your scalp.
yeah, and because it absorbs and it can cause reactions, or it can just cause your hair to be limp, it can cause all these other types of things,
Mhm.
right? That we're
Right.
not seeing. And so it is hard to, like, go out into the market if you're just a regular person, a regular consumer who's, like, shopping and maybe doesn't have the time or the capacity to think and, like, do all this deep research, right? We have
Mhm.
the passion and the drive, and not to say other people don't have the passion and the drive, but maybe it's not in their capacity or their calling
Right.
to make their own hair products
Right.
and hair butters, right? And so what, I guess, are some of the, like, things, like, you were calling out, like, ingredient-wise that you think is helpful for people to be aware of that you've just seen in your formulation journey, um, that, might seem commonplace in products, but were actually some of those harmful ingredients?
Right. Well, I'll start with even though coconut oil isn't harmful, to your point with you saying the allergies, that's one of the reasons why we intentionally left coconut oil out of our products because some people do have allergies, some people are indifferent, and then some people they, like you said, they make their hair, their strands limp and just don't produce an overall healthy hair result. And
Mhm.
so the piece when it comes to formulating is also listening to the consumers and the market and seeing, okay, what are they saying and building development around that. But as far as, like, ingredients, just being mindful of, like, looking at the literature and seeing what are ingredients that are out there that has been already proven to be linked to, like, endocrine hormone disruptors, linked to fibroids, linked to causing cancer potentially, and we know that to be true with parabens, which are, like I mentioned earlier about the preservatives. There are ingredients that release formaldehyde, like formaldehyde releasing ingredients, phthalates that are like hidden in fragrances and things like that. So just knowing what type of ingredients causes potential health issues and then just being intentional about excluding them from formulas or excluding them from your hair care routine when you're shopping for products. So that's kind of how I go about it. One of the things that has been helpful for me has been following EU guidelines when it comes to ingredients because they have a more robust guidelines and restrictions in comparison to the US. I think we're tightening things up a little bit now, but that's where I kind of like, stay closer and steer closer to that side because I know that I'm operating in somewhat of a safe zone, with that. So
Yeah.
that's how I proceed.
And so I should also add that Amika has a background in microbiology for those who are listening,
Yeah.
right? And so I think for people that are listening and they're, like, hearing, like, endocrine disruptors, right? And all of those things, can you touch a little bit on, like, what that actually does to the body? Like, or, like, fragrance, right? Like, that's an ingredient that I avoid now
Mhm.
because it's kind of like a cover up, like, term, and you don't know, like,
Right,
what's
right,
actually in the fragrance, but can you talk a little bit about, like, the connections just between some of those terms and what they're actually doing in the body?
right. So endocrine hormone disruptors. So let's say women, we have estrogen. And so estrogen is playing its natural role in our body. But if you're introducing ingredients that are disrupting that process, then that's where, the issues start to arise. And even with the ingredients that potentially causes cancer, they're all disrupting some normal process in our body, and taking it out of equilibrium. And so I think of it from the perspective of like when you're using, because whenever you're using products, we're using them to have healthy hair, right? So in terms of, when we're using products, we are using them for healthier hair, healthier scalp. And so when these products have the ingredients that kind of like counterproductive to that, then that's when we need to question like, is it really worth like using products with these ingredients overall? So that's what I would say is that's why I would say it's important to just be mindful of the ingredients that we, put on our hair and scalp.
Yeah. And I'm gonna ask you a little bit more about, like, some of the specific kind of, like, terms people can be looking out for, like, a little bit at the end. But you said something about, like, people wanting to see healthy hair when they're choosing products, and we also talked a little bit about how, sometimes people get a product, right, and they, like, think they're hydrated, they think it's moisturized, and then later on their hair starts to feel dry or crunchy, like, some of those reactions, and, like, a product isn't working, right? So from a formulation perspective, what are things that people can be looking out for to know if a product like is or is not compatible with their hair in terms of like when they're applying, like when they're putting something on their heads, like what are some signals that they can be considering as well?
Yeah. I think when it comes to hair products, like we would all like to think there's a one size to fit all, right? Like, that this one product is going to work for every single
That's how I work
head
for so and
in the
so,
world.
and it has to work for me.
Hey,
Yeah,
yes, but the reality is that choosing the right products and knowing if they work for you is knowing your particular hair textures, right? So some people go by the typing system, some people don't. But let's just say for the sake of typing, type 4 hair is more kinkier, the kinkier, tightly cool texture. Products that work for that hair type may not necessarily work for type 1, which is bone
straight.
straight, because type 4 products generally are going to be more moisture based because we lack the moisture, like the sebum that's in the oil that's on our scalp naturally. It has a harder time traveling down the strands because of
Because
our
of the shape.
pools and things like that. Yes, and so knowing your porosity is a big one because in the same bucket, you can have someone with type 4 kinky strands here. You can have someone over here with type 4 kinky strands, but this person has high porosity and this person has low porosity, and that one same product won't work for them. So, like a high porosity person, they may be able to, soak up the moisture and the water or whatever, and it just leaves. It leaves just as fast. And so it leaves their hair
Their shafts
dry,
are
which can lead to
open.
brittleness. Yes, and then, the same with the low porosity, keeping it being able to it so low porosity is the opposite, getting the moisture into the hair.
Yeah, it's low porosity is your strands are essentially tight, so you're trying to get moisture
Yeah,
in because
it's
once it's
tight.
in there,
Yes,
it's
yes.
gonna hold it up.
Mhm.
And high porosity is like a
It's
revolving
flat.
door. It's
Yeah.
going in, it's going out. It's like I'm coming in, but I'm going out just as quick as I came. It's a high and by situation.
So yeah, just knowing the different levels of your hair, high porosity, low porosity, then also knowing that what works for somebody else is not going to necessarily work for you. I think sometimes we get so caught
Yeah.
up in, oh, this person has this hairstyle or these products work for them. Like everybody has their holy grail product that they swear by, and then someone else may use it and they say, oh, this didn't work for me, or my hair is limp, or is I don't have the volume that I'm used to. And so trial and error, take samples. That's why most brands do sample products so you can, try a sample size before investing in large sizes to see how the product is going to work for your hair. But overall, I would say don't model someone else's hair routine and their style as your own. Give yourself grace to figure it out in the process because it is a
Yep.
journey for a reason.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep. And so we're talking about like our hair strands as well, but like I think a lot of people don't think about their scalp when they're thinking about products as well.
Hmm.
And so like touching a little bit on like how does scalp care come into play like with the product selection, right? Like is it one and the same with our hair? Does it need a different set of things? Like how does it kind of come into the interplay in the mix?
Yeah. So scalp care, I think of scalp care like your skin. And everybody's skin is different. Some people's skin is dry, some people's skin is oily. And so like knowing the state of your particular scalp, because like somebody who has like dermatology, like not dermatology, seborrheic dermatitis,
Mm-hmm.
if they're putting oils to their scalp, that can exacerbate it and make it worse, right? And so scalp health is so important in the sense that also you want to ensure that your scalp is clean and healthy, that it doesn't have product buildup. I know sometimes, people are trying so many different products and then don't realize that they have buildup over time and they think the product stopped working. But the reality is that there's so much residue, from previous product use and that can build up on your scalp. And so with clarifying, it helps to just kind of remove and make sure you're starting with a clean base and then giving your follicles the chance to breathe. Like a healthy scalp is going to result in healthy hair because if your follicles are open and breathing, then it's going to encourage the hair growth, let it grow freely. It's nothing inhibiting it or prohibiting from growing. So that's why the scalp piece is just as important as the actual loose strands that come from the scalp itself.
Yeah. I typically think, like, about my scalp to your point, like, I've talked to different people with different, like, types of hair conditions, and it's typically kind of like to the conditions where you can't have all those different oils are, like, knowing, like, you need a super lightweight one, like, what are the safe oils that are out there, like,
Right.
for seborrheic dermatitis. I, like, went through a phase where I, like, moved from Atlanta to DC, my scalp got so dry, and I was panicked. I was like, "Oh, no, it's like snowflakes falling." I was, like, panicked and also embarrassed, 'cause I was like, "Who like, my hair has never done this before," right? And I used to use a heavier oil a lot more regularly, and I had to, like, kinda transition to more, like,
Mhm.
lightweight oils because of the new climate that I was in, and so, like, I think when it comes to scalp, it's more so informing some of the, like, selection choices, right? Like, if you have
Mhm.
seborrheic dermatitis, then avoiding certain oils that would, like,
Mhm.
feed in, like, if you have a
Right.
drier scalp or things like that, which seborrheic dermatitis is an actual specific condition, it's not just dry scalp. For clarification for those that are listening, that's something that you would wanna, like, identify versus just saying, "I have a dry scalp, it must be this," because again,
Right.
I wanna make sure that we're clear for the listeners, but, like, knowing, like, kind of, okay, like, what things are gonna meet the conditions of my hair, and are those things that are good for my scalp also in the products that I'm selecting and choosing to make it kind of like a holistic thing, and is my scalp staying clean, right? Like, is it covered in buildup like you said?
Right. And then to the shampoos and the cleansers that you're using because like sulfate cleansers are more drying for textured hair. And so for our hair types, I generally recommend sulfate free.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if are you a sulfate person or
No, I
does it
also use sulfate free, and I
you know just
actually enjoy
okay.
because I have very sensitive skin, like, I've grown up with having eczema and, like, all these other things, and so I actually I am very into, like, bars right now for my
Shampoo
routine. Yeah,
bars?
shampoo and conditioner bars,
Mhm.
and that's, like, 1,
Bars.
they're
Mhm.
packaging-wise great for the environment, and 2, like, I have, like, a oat one, an oat and aloe one, I think it's from Briogeo, but that's where I've been able to find, like, my sweet
Mhm.
spot as well, so I do typically tend to avoid them just because I know that it will dry me out, and
Yeah.
I am easily irritated.
In a
With my
quick
skin,
second.
yeah,
Yep.
my skin is easily irritated, so I am very cautious about that.
Right. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. But you were saying sulfate, so you typically recommend that people don't use shampoos with sulfates because they can be more drying for our specific hair texture on top of we're trying to, like, work the moisture in, right? We're trying to, like, get moisture in, so if we're using something that's already stripping on top of our need to add it in, it's kind of, like, counterproductive.
Yes, absolutely.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thinking about our products too, because I kind of talked a little bit about like the shift in my climate and that made changes in my hair. For product ingredients and how they interact with our hair, what are your thoughts on do we need to change our routine with the seasons? Is that something that people should be considering when they're thinking about their products, or is it just changing how they're using them in their routine or changing how they're styling? Where does that typically land?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it varies for the person, but for the most part, many people do change their products depending on the season. For, say, for instance, in winter, it's really in areas where it's really dry and cold, like freezing, it can really just wreak havoc on your strands and cause way more dryness than you're used to. So, deep conditioning more. You may, like, let's say, for instance, in the summertime, if you use a more lightweight conditioner, you may have to go for a more intense base conditioner. Summertime, it's more humid. So the humid can rob your hair of moisture. So you may have to, use a heavier moisturizer. So for the most part, I would say that the difference between summer and winter depends on the person's hair type. But you can also, for me, I'm the type of person who can use the same products year round and not have to rotate my products out. And that could be because the way that I form, the form it could be my bias for my hair. But I definitely will say that it's okay. Sometimes people may use a product for a while and then they say, "Oh, this is not working for me no more." And the fact of the matter is that it's in a new season. They just need a different routine in that moment. So it's definitely something to be mindful of. And it's nothing wrong if you have to rotate or use different products to achieve whatever that desired end goal it is for your hair to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that's important, right? Because some people might go through a season where they're feeling frustrated with a product and it's like, this used to be my holy grail or whatever that is. And so, like, really honing in on, like, if your hair is drier, like, if you high porosity hair, it's going to be drier. So, like, definitely in those winter months, right, where you're already losing moisture
Yeah.
in general, like, that's something that you would want to think about if you see your hair getting dry fast when it's already a humid summer. When the winter comes, you definitely wanna
Yeah.
make sure you're leveling down and, like, fortifying it with, like, more deep conditioning or with those things that are gonna hold your
Hmm.
moisture in. So thank you for sharing that perspective. I wanna circle back because we started off talking about, right, like, one, the connection between the ingredients that in the products that are mainly on the market, seeing kind of, like, the different,
Hmm.
like, parabens. I've never said this word right, like phthalates. I'm like, I see it and I never say it right anytime, but like sulfates, like all of those
Yeah.
words. It's so funny because I come at this from like an education perspective and like from my personal experience. So
Uh-huh.
some things when I'm in the research, I'm like, science, how
Yeah.
science, so great as I'm reading it. Like, thinking about those ingredients, right? Because we know them as, like, these certain categories that can be endocrine disruptors, that can, like, cause all these other things, but when people are looking at the labels, like, they may not be seeing them and, like, this is a paraben, this is a sulfate, and so, like, I know we talk about, like, doing some of the research, but I'm curious, were there any, like, common ones that you came across in your formulating journey that, like, people can just have their eyes out for, in terms of, like, when they're kinda scanning products and thinking about what that impact is? Or the best way that they can really start to, like, understand that for themselves and inform themselves in the selection?
Yeah, I think so. What I usually recommend to people when it comes to looking at ingredients is to the easiest way, because there's so many, to just Google, like a simple Google of parabens linked to, cancer causing. And like they usually come up with the entire list because, like I said, it's kind of vast. So, like DM, methyl, I can't pronounce that was methyl. I mean, it's quite a few. So that's the one thing I always just try to equip people to be, I guess, forward
Yeah,
with understanding and educating themselves so that they can know and see and have something to compare and contrast to. But also equally important is knowing what ingredients to kind of be on the lookout for. The green flag, so to speak, as you mentioned. And I think when it comes to those products, nourishing ingredients, like aloe vera, you mentioned that you have that in your butter. That's a really good nourishing ingredient to have along with water. I know many times we talk about toxic ingredients and, people talk about chemicals, but water in itself, H2O, is a chemical. So there are quote unquote good chemicals and bad chemicals, but the main thing is toxic versus non-toxic. And so
yeah,
nourishing oils like the jojoba oils, which is a lighter oil, just looking for those nourishing ingredients that are gonna feed your hair and scalp. And as far as the bad ingredients, yeah, mostly they are in alignment with the preservatives. So knowing the preservatives, and I would say, yeah, for the most part, knowing what preservatives are placed in there, because even when I think about popular gels and different products, that's the thing that stands out mostly is usually the preservatives.
yeah, yeah. And a resource that I always share, and I'll share it again, that I personally like, and thank you for calling out, right, like that toxic versus non-toxic and some of the green flags to be thinking about too, because we can focus so much on, like, what are the negative things that are gonna harm me? Then it's like, well, what should I
Right.
actually be looking for? So I think that's a good call out. And the resource that I love to use is the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep database. And so you can
Yeah,
Yep, EW yes, I be on there. Tell me what's in here, EWD. But it does exactly that. So if you are trying to, like, research a product and just understand, like, what are the impacts of that product, you can search it. It has a lot of products in there. Not everything is in there, but I do think it's a really good, like, database, and it will tell you, like, here's a, score of its toxicity levels of safety. It will tell you a breakout of, like, the different
right.
ingredients if they are known to potentially cause cancer, potentially be an endocrine disruptor, all of those different things. They'll tell you if they don't know what the ingredient's supposed to do. If it's like unknown five in there,
Yeah.
it will literally let you know. So then you can decide for yourself and like better inform yourself on those questions, right? But I think for selecting your products, right? Like if we're kind of recapping and summarizing, like really understanding just from observing your hair, like how does your hair take in moisture? Like, is it more prone to dryness or does it stay hydrated very well, right? How is your scalp reacting? The same way you're checking the moisture of your
Mhm.
hair is the same way you want to be checking the moisture of your scalp to better understand and then understanding the source of that, right? Like if you are experiencing dry scalp, identifying the cause of why, because maybe adding some oil in your routine is okay. Maybe if it's something like seborrheic dermatitis, you want to be very cautious of a lot of oils that could then exacerbate it. So, looking at those qualities and then understanding what is going to feed our hair, like Amika said, for our kinky curls,
Yes.
we gotta work it in. I know y'all be doing hair day and like feeling them arm muscles flexing, but it's because of the shape of our hair. We have to do a little bit more work there. So all of those things are really important. And as we begin to wrap down this conversation, I know I said earlier we'd kind of circle back a little bit to kind of some like final parting advice, and you just gave some good tips. But Amika, especially from your mindset, I love that you come from like formulating and like being able to like have sat in the cancer research based on the other side of like what could potentially be like creating an environment by some of the ingredients in these products and also formulating your own handmade as well as minor handmade too. So like any final like tips or pieces of advice with so many things on the market right now to help someone with thinking about like their hair product journey and what's going to work best for them.
Again, just start with learning your hair. I met with a friend the other day and she just returned natural. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to learn my hair again. Like, I don't know how to style my hair." And like I told her, I said, "It truly is a journey. Like, cuz you're starting over from, it's almost like breaking a leg and then having to learn how to walk all over again. Like you know what I'm saying? Like at one point in time you knew how to walk. But then in my case, I didn't know how to walk because I always had the relaxer. But anyway, it's like you have to learn how to, care for your hair again. And so I would say the number one thing is start embracing and knowing that it's your journey first and that nobody else is gonna be on the same hair journey as you, and so you can't come with the mindset of copying their routine because it's gonna set you up for internal mental failure all the time, where you maybe start to resent your hair and the strands, that God blessed you with. So embracing the journey, trial and error, try products to see how it's gonna work. How does this shampoo feel on my hair? Is it tangling my hair? Is it a hydrating shampoo where I can detangle with ease? Okay, let me add this to my rotation. Find you a conditioner. Okay, let me add this until you build your routine and stick with the routine for a while. Now, I know us product junkies, right? We can be product junkies and we jump from brand to brand, product to product, hoping for that magical fix. But it's like working out. You visualize this fine body that's fit, that got the abs and the muscles and all of that type of stuff. And then you go to the gym one day, and then next day you eating a large pizza and you ain't step foot outside. You in
Oh
your bed.
Lord.
And so, like, just like the gym, like you have to come up with a routine and stick with it. Give it a chance to work. Give it time to be able to penetrate and to see. And then after a while, you could do process of elimination. Okay, this worked, this didn't work. What do I need to change? But that consistent routine is going to set you up the best to have something that works for you where you're able to achieve the results that you desire. So I would say that's one of the last tips overall. That collectively, then I think you're setting yourself up to have a healthy hair journey and also a healthy outlook on how you see your own hair.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because I know a lot of people get one product and be like, this oil or this butter or this thing is gonna like be the overall change. And they are helpful and they're game changers. But to your point, it's consistency, finding the right place in your routine for your hair, right? Like if you're drier or like more
Right.
moisturized, and allowing time to work and being consistent with cleansing and moisturizing in the overall process of it. Not just saying, I'm gonna throw this oil on here every day and then it's gonna grow or I'm gonna see results or whatever it is you're hoping to see. And also like accepting your texture for your texture. So, like, even if it does grow somebody's hair, like, it's
Absolutely.
not if y'all have different textures, like, the way their hair grows is still gonna be different than how your hair grows, the way especially if you have more shrinkage. Your hair could be growing a lot, and your shrinkage is still gonna be more, right? And so, like, just
Yes.
kind of like removing some of the comparison bias, um, in that space as well. So I appreciate you sharing that it's really a holistic journey. It's the products, and we want to be mindful about them because the ingredients do have a really big impact, and we want to be mindful about how we're layering them up and like consistently using them with an understanding of our hair as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, wrapping up
Yes.
with my final favorite question that I love to ask, if you could say one affirmation to your hair right now, what would it be?
One affirmation would be, I love you. I love you. Everything about you, and I wouldn't change a thing about you.
Oh, I've been about you and I'm still about you. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And I want that for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody listening, the same thing for you. Love your strands. They're beautiful. That's like our fingerprint. Like nobody literally has the same strands and hair on their hair like us. Like everybody has their own unique canvas. And so the more you are able to appreciate it and accept it, the more you can show up more confident. Like, this is who I am, right? And can't nobody take this from me. So yes.
No, I love that so much. Amika, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us at Your Hair Made Simple. And for all of those who are listening, I hope you're giving a big like round of applause to Amika from wherever you're listening or watching. And that's it until next time. So remember that all hair is good hair and your hair is good hair. Thanks for joining us.